Red, Gold, and Bold, a Kansas City football podcast. Back with you as always. Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager quenching his thirst for Chiefs football right now as we speak from Pro Football Focus. You can read his work at pff.com. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHP. Catch me via the stream or our podcast at 810WHP.com. And gentlemen, the wins just keep on coming for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not pretty, but they're 5 in a row. Let's start with that. Winning ugly. Can the Kansas City Chiefs actually win a Super Bowl playing ugly football, Jeff?
I'm on the fence about it. I have been impressed by their willingness to play this way and to succeed playing this way. I still feel like this team has been built around its offense, around its quarterback, around its head coach's offensive mind. And so what concerns me about them playing this way, they're showing a lot of toughness and resilience, but they're not special anymore. And so I think what made them unique was just a prolific offense, a dynamic offense, a strike from any place on the field offense. And without that, you know, we were joking about this over the weekend about just watching unattractive football. And you watch the Ravens lose to the Steelers. You watch the Raiders football team game. All these games, Miami, New York Giants. All these games where they're scoring about 30 points combined, 35 points combined. I just feel like some teams are better suited to play that way than the Chiefs are. And so while I give them a ton of credit for how they're playing and what they've accomplished and the way they fought back into this and being tied for the best record in the AFC right now, I do wonder. I don't think it's a championship caliber defense. I think it's a defense that's playing really well right now.
Yeah, it is playing really well. And I don't know. I mean, Eric, your point all year has kind of been like, yeah, they're winning when they do win. They're winning and winning ugly, but there is still more ahead. If there isn't more ahead, can they win with this style of football?
I find it hard to, of course. Like, I think, I think it's hard to win this way consistently. But as I said on your show, Soren, like in the 2019 season, you know, they were winning this way once their defense was figuring it out, right? Like you look at, you know, they lose to Tennessee in Mahomes' first game back. Mahomes throws 3 touchdowns on 50 attempts, 8.9 yards an attempt. They lose, right? After that, Chargers game in Mexico, 5.7 yards an attempt, just 1 touchdown. Oakland game at home, they win because, you know, Juan Thornhill touchdown. You know, defense plays great. 6 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown. The New England game, they finally get off the schneid against Belichick at Foxborough. 7.1 yards an attempt, 1 touchdown. Against Denver in the snow, 340, 2 touchdowns, 10 yards an attempt. Chicago on Sunday Night Football, the one where he counted it on his fingers, where he was drafted, 7.6 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns. And then in the Week 17 game where they clinched the 2 seed, 7 yards an attempt, 16 of 25, 174, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, right? The Chiefs won that game because McCole Hardman ran a kickoff back and Damian Williams had one of his long runs, right? This is not unprecedented in a broad sense. I think Mahomes' play now is worse than all those games I just talked about, but they're within the region of error of these games, right? And they've won those kind of games going into the postseason. And I think at the time, you know, at the time we were a little bit desensitized to it maybe, but I think like the same exact questions we have right now, we should have had back then. And then of course, you know, once the playoffs happened, you know, Andy certainly opened the thing up and Pat played well. And I'm hoping that comes to fruition this year.
Listen, I know we always start down this road like, can they win like this? And then we end up saying, but they're going to play better because that's what they do, right? But I like this question because it's about not playing better, right? And we can try to either pick nits or reverse engineer why they're not playing at a higher level. It could be that the league is caught up to Patrick Mahomes, to Andy Reid, to their talent. Travis Kelce's getting older. Tyreek Hill's finally slowing down. I don't know. You might have some of the data on that, Eric, as to whether or not that's actually occurring. Sammy Watkins meant more than everybody thought. The bottom line is, though, they're kicking ass on defense, right? That's happening. Now, caliber of opponent, certainly. I'll listen to it all day. They're not shutting down the Arizona Cardinals or the Tampa Bay Bucks right now, but they're definitively playing better defensive football. And is this, Jeff, just what it looks like when you lean on your defense, right? Before they've done what they had to do because they couldn't trust in their defense. And this is Andy Reid saying, look, they're playing us to keep us in the game, so we'll stay in the game because we can keep them down as well. Is this just them embracing this style of football, the style that you so dearly love, Jeff?
Yeah. Well, they are embracing it, which is a good thing. That's a positive. But I don't know if it's by choice. And that's the scary part about it. I think they're embracing because they have to do it. And which brings me back to the same question you just posed, which is, this is a defense that was built to be a complement to a great offense. And so I don't know if in the middle of a year you can all of a sudden change it around and say, okay, the offense can be a good complement to a defense playing at a high level. I think that's really hard to do. And so do I believe that caliber opponent factors into how they're playing? Yeah, but I don't think that's a way of shortchanging them for what they're doing. Ultimately, they're still doing what they have to do. And the way the NFL is shaking out this year, especially in the AFC, they may not see that many offenses that could really take advantage of some of their flaws. You know, Eric just rattled off all those teams that they played in 2019. Well, only one of those teams made the playoffs in the end in that year, whereas every team they're going to play moving forward legitimately thinks they can be in the playoffs or have a chance to win the division, which changes the equation immensely when you're trying to compete for things at the end. Yeah, look, I don't want to be the Grinch tonight. I want to be the guy who trumpets what they're doing because I like what I'm seeing. I like the way they're playing with confidence on that side of the football and the way they're being resourceful and getting wins. I just feel like, you know, again, when I watched Buffalo and New England play yesterday, I felt like when I see Baltimore as beat up as they are, or even the Steelers, I think there's just some teams that have been playing that way a lot longer. And if they get the right breaks, they can beat a team like Kansas City.
I think that's fair that if the other teams get the right breaks. And I like what you said, they've played that way a lot longer. So maybe it's still just a shock to the NFL intelligentsia's system, for lack of a better term. They're like, well, this isn't how they're supposed to play, so I refuse to buy into it. But, Eric, I'll ask you, you know, you guys, and I know over on the PFF Forecast, you and George Cheruri, great podcast. I encourage everybody to subscribe to it. One of the things you guys hit upon several weeks ago was, you know, how we're willing to buy into the good games and disregard the bad games. And that when a team plays well, good teams anyway, that's who they are. We eliminate, it was a blip on the radar screen when the Bills lose to the Jags. Who they really are is the team that's winning. And I think isn't there a little bit of an element, and maybe this is just a Kansas City because, you know, those of us that cover this team and are close up to it are too close to the trees to see the forest. But nobody's talking about the 2-4 start of the New England Patriots. They are now just the 7-0 team that has won the last 7. We have now removed from our memory a 17-16 loss to the Dolphins, a 28-13 loss to the Saints, a 19-17 loss to the Bucks, and a 35-29 loss to the Cowboys. Wedged in there were wins against the Jets and Texans. At 2-4, not only were they 2-4, they'd only beaten the Jets and Texans. Why should we, in your mind, believe more in the Patriots 7-0 than the Chiefs 5-0?
I don't think you should. I think it's more of a surprise thing, right? Like it's a surprise that Bill Belichick's able to incorporate all these players back in, not only the free agency signed, which is, you know, sort of weird for him, but also the COVID opt-outs from last year back in. I think it's, you know, it's unexpected that on offense, you know, when your best receivers are Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, and Jacoby Myers, that Mac Jones is having success. Mac Jones being the 5th quarterback taken in the draft, beating out Cam Newton, and then, you know, playing well enough to you know, have his team in the 1 seed. I think that is unexpected. I think it's the novelty more than it is the true actual sort of thing that we're actually measuring here.
Yeah, Jeff, how about it? The 7-0 Pats seems to trump 2-4 start. There's a Bill Belichick history there. There's a young quarterback playing better with more experience. But Andy Reid should carry some swag there. And there should be reason to believe with past evidence that Patrick Mahomes is going to play better. So why wouldn't the NFL embrace, at least the NFL media embrace more, the 5-0 part of the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, I think they're more equal than other people may give them credit for. I'm impressed by both situations. And I'll put the Colts in there too. Another team that was going nowhere over a month ago that's figured things out for themselves. So in a lot of ways, all these teams are testament to what's happening in the NFL, where I come around to the belief that every good team is going to have their rough stretch in a year like this. And you're seeing Dallas go through it. You saw the Bucs go through it a couple of weeks back. You saw Arizona go through it a little bit when they lost to the Packers and then had that game against the Cam Newton just come back against Carolina. And see, surely the AFC is filled with teams doing it, whether it's the Bengals, whether it's the Ravens, whether it's the Titans, the Dolphins. And so everybody's getting their turn to take their lumps. And so I do give the Patriots and the Chiefs a ton of credit for this and how they played going forward. Again, I think the issue that people have nationally with the Chiefs is that there is it's hard to buy into it when the quarterback has been so sensational for so long. I'm with the belief now that this is who they are. This is what they're going to be offensively the rest of the year. I've given up this hope of believing that they're going to revert back to being super consistent just because why would it happen now? I mean, every last thing we've looked at that could change has changed. They've run the ball more. They've thrown more screen passes. They've gotten players healthy. The same things keep happening.
Josh, don't forget about Josh Gordon's been.
Yeah, that's right. Josh Gordon. Yeah. And so and that's not a bad thing. It's just at some point you have to be realistic about who they are. And if the trump card that we're playing with the Chiefs is, well, Mahomes is going to snap out of this. Well, it's been 2 months now. It's not like a snap out of a thing anymore. It's just this is who they're going to be, and it's going to be ugly football the rest of the year.
Eric, how about it? Do we need to start saying this is just what their offense is, and if this is whatever this year is going to be, it's going to be carried on the backs of the defense?
Yeah, and it's sort of crazy, right? Because at the beginning of the year, we were all talking about the defense possibly being one that you could win with, and our whole thing was, oh, if Pat gets hot, then the Chiefs can do some things, right? And it really has not formulated that way. And that's it's interesting. I will think about this though, guys. I'm looking right now at the 2006 Indianapolis Colts. Why the 2006 Indianapolis Colts? Well, they had the worst defense in the NFL for a while. They got that back, but it was also not Peyton Manning's best year, right? It's sort of an interesting year. Peyton Manning had 6 games, consecutively, right around where the Chiefs are right now, where he had no games with a passer rating above 100. And in the playoffs that year, he had no games with a passer rating over 82. And of course, we all know the Indianapolis Colts won the Super Bowl that year. It was a year also with no great teams, right? That year, the 2 seed in the NFC was the 10-6 New Orleans Saints. The 1 seed was the Bears, quarterback by Rex Grossman. And in the AFC, it was the Colts and the 14-2 Marty Schottenheimer Chargers that were the 2 buys in that year. This is not unprecedented, right? It's interesting, right? Because Patrick Mahomes, as people have reported, has had the longest streak of a non-slump in his career, right? And we always think of these development paths as linear, but the NFL is littered with sort of, again, a team winning somebody else's Super Bowl, even when the quarterback doesn't get really hot. Even Aaron Rodgers, who I thought in 2010 was the first it was the singular year in Rodgers' early career where he didn't make the Pro Bowl, back when the Pro Bowl mattered. And again, he got white hot in the playoffs against Atlanta, but he wasn't great against Chicago. He had to make a tackle on Urlacher, and then in the Super Bowl he was wonderful. So these things aren't always as simple as elite quarterback plays fantastic, and that's the only path to winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, we know that when you have an elite quarterback, they have the capability of playing fantastic, and maybe you win a rock fight, you win a defensive battle, and you win, one where he gets red hot and wins a shootout. There are different games that have to be won. One thing that I do think is concerning, and it's become a trend, Jeff, and that is we know about the 15 plays or however many it is that are scripted by the Kansas City Chiefs. Their last 3 home games, they have gone right down the field on that first drive and scored a touchdown. That's old school being 18, 19, 20 Chiefs, right down the field, while they're figuring it out. And a big part of that script, as we've discussed before, is to probe the defense. And how are you going to react to these different things? How can we get it? It's not just to score points. It's always the goal to score points, but it's also to see how you're going to play us here today. They've gone right down the field. And that's supposed to be, okay, now we know what you're going to do. We're really going to kick your ass. Like, that's how it used to be in 18 and 19, right? And that's, and when they were going good in 19, and in 20 when they were having their moments. Can you put your finger on why they can be so successful on the opening drive at home, and then in those 3 games, every other drive resulted in a total combined 1 touchdown? What's going on?
Yeah. I was sitting next to Haley Lewis from Channel 41, the local NBC affiliate. We were talking about, and I said to her, they hadn't scored more than 22 points at home since when? And she was like, she went back and checked. It was week 1 against the Browns. And some of this is just the more time any defense gets to study what you're doing, the more familiar they're going to get with what you're trying to accomplish. And I remember talking about this back in the offseason and maybe early in the regular season about the way the Chiefs play football and the way Mahomes plays football is that they were able to get away for the last 3 years with doing a lot of unpredictable things, unexpected things. And so, you don't expect a quarterback to roll to his right and throw the football 50 yards back across the field to his left. You don't expect things like that to happen, but they were happening. And what I've seen over the entire year is just teams realizing that let's play them to do the things that most teams won't do against you. And what this team struggles with is just doing the mundane stuff. Again, referring back to that New England game against Buffalo, it's Bill Belichick will run the football 45 times in a game to win. There's no way Andy Reid will ever do that, ever. And you saw the flip side of it. Buffalo played a lot like the Chiefs were playing earlier this year, where it's just like our quarterback's going to make it happen. We're going to give him every opportunity. He's going to make a play, and they couldn't make it happen. And so their belief was that our quarterback is dynamic and a superstar, and he's going to win the game for us. And New England's belief was we got to do whatever it takes to win this game. And so maybe there is something changing in the Chiefs' equilibrium as far as what they're doing with Mahomes and the plays they're calling. But it just seems like a lot of teams know what they're going to do, know what they want to do, and they're not completely comfortable doing what they have to do to be successful.
Eric, why do you think that first drive has been so successful, and then after that, almost no success when it comes to getting into the end zone?
Well, the Chiefs haven't really. I think it's just a lack of focus, isn't it? Like they're not moving the ball, right? The interceptions, like I said this on your show today, the Chiefs are lucky that like all their turnovers, all their drop stuff is like in the other team's area, right? Like the Jaron Kearse interception, the Patrick Surtain Jr. interception, and I think it's just like they know to be focused on the first drive through the end zone. And then after that, it's just like they have the goods. Like they're moving the ball. The thing with the Broncos game that's so interesting is the Broncos held the ball for basically the whole second quarter. And that was overshadowed the fact that in the first half, what did they do? They went touchdown, field goal, punt, and then end the half with a drive, which was basically them being backed up. So like it wasn't even like the first half was a litany of errors, and that's how they came out with just the 10 points. It was they didn't have the ball very much. And then in the Dallas game, they moved it a lot, penalties, drop balls, that kind of thing. And to me, it's always like they come out of everything sort of strong. And then, of course, the confidence or whatever, the focus and all this stuff wanes. And then they end up with a drop pass or a holding penalty or a missed assignment or whatever. And that curtails their drives. And they're just not making the big plays that I mean, when's the last time Pat hit a 20-yard air yards pass?
Yeah. But isn't that how they're built though? Isn't that part of their DNA, which why they have those lapses in focus? They're used to things happening quickly.
Yep.
And when they don't, it's just like, well, why is it not happening quickly?
Yeah, I think Pat, like, a lot of the statistics, you look at like completion percentage above expected, which I think has some flaws, but like Patrick Mahomes has always been like middle of the pack, right? We always like looked at Pat and said, oh, he engineers throws where the accuracy is trivial. That's why his completion percentage above expected isn't always high. But like, are we ready to address the idea that maybe he isn't the most pinpoint guy in the world? Like that sometimes he misses throws. And I know some of it was drops, but even if you throw drops in there, he was only accurate on 72% of the balls that he threw against Denver. And I know Denver's got a good defense too. I think it's good to acknowledge that they eat their Wheaties as well, and Dallas too. But like, there's also this aspect of some of the things that he was getting away with because of like good luck or just guys being so open. Like it's the margins are thinner now, and he's not like, he's got accuracy is, I would say, like he's not bad at it, but it's not like his top like 2 or 3 traits, right? And so that's where you get these extended streaks of like him not hitting a ball down the field. It'll probably come back down to earth, but
I'll disagree with that a little bit. I mean, I'm maybe I'm picking nits with what you said, but I think he's been pretty accurate, and I think there has been a little bit of an accuracy problem. I think part of it might be, yes, they were built to stretch the field, and now that's been taken away from them. And so, if you run a dragster, a drag car, top fuel, funny car, whatever, that runs the quarter mile, you run it around a Formula One track, it ain't going to look real good. The big tires on the back end and the little tires on the front end don't corner well, right? And likewise, you run a Formula One car on a drag strip, it ain't going to look like anything compared to those funny cars that go down there. So I mean, that's a gross exaggeration to make a point. And so I think there's some elements. It's like we always say, it's probably all of these things, right? It's all of a little bit of everything here. This is one that hasn't been talked about. Although there's a team. If you're going to compare this Chiefs team, you compare it to the Rams, greatest show on turf. But I would also go back to the Bill Walsh 49ers in the sense that you have a really prolific offensive coach. I know Dick Vermeil may have been an extremely prolific coach had he never walked away from the game and coached all the years that Andy Reid did, or stayed with one team the way Bill Walsh did instead of bouncing around to a few teams. Maybe Vermeil would be there. But, consistency-wise, the 49ers under Walsh, I think, is a pretty good comp. And the team that I've compared this to potentially is the 88 49ers, who really weren't that impressive. They were a 10-6 team, and then they got to the playoffs and went 34-9, 28-3, and then did have a dogfight with the Bengals in the Super Bowl 20-16. But once they got to the playoffs, they asserted some dominance there. Is there any chance this team is just bored?
That was, by the way, the 28-3 win in Soldier Field was the only road playoff win in Joe Montana's career before he joined the Kansas City Chiefs. So like that was the one time the Niners had to sort of go to the Super Bowl through the back door, was
right
when they went 10-6 and they were the 2 seed, but kind of like only because like the Saints finished 10-6 that year too, and so did the Rams, and they got like a tiebreaker there. The Vikings at 11-5, just like that cursed franchise, doesn't even win their own division, doesn't get a bye. And like, so it was that way, but you're right. And like, what did the, if you look at the statistics that year, that was a quarterback controversy. That was Bill Walsh being on his BS, but it was also, you look at the superstar that year for the Niners was Roger Craig, ran for 1,500 yards. It was a 1 year that he carried that offense. And I wonder if that's not what we need to see in Kansas City, which is somebody picking Pat up a little bit and being like, look, like it's time. And I don't know how you do that in the modern NFL, because I don't see Clyde out here running for the 1,500-yard pace, right? But what you are seeing, and this was always what those Niners teams had that no one ever talked about, was that Niners defense was really freaking good, with Keena Turner and Charles Haley and Eric Wright and all this, Ronnie Lott. And like, that's what's happening right now. The Chiefs defense is picking Pat up, and they're carrying him until he gets hot. And to your point about Montana, once he got hot, it was over for the rest of the league, right? Like, and they just got to stay alive, right? And this team, I mean, the reason we're talking about them so weirdly is that they've won 5 in a row. Like, remember, like a month ago, we're all looking at this calendar and we're like, when are they get? Where's 3 wins, right? Whereas now, like I'm like, where's 3 losses left on it? Like
where's 2 losses? Where's
2
one?
losses? Like, I mean, I don't think you could spell.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Now.
I don't think you could spell the word football with the number of L's on this schedule left over.
I think I'm saying that's where fans are. I mean, I think at Chargers, at Bengals, and even at Broncos can be tough. I mean, I think all the road games and home field advantage hasn't been
Raiders
much.
this week could be tough.
Well, that's right. And as we've talked about, they're not scoring a lot of points at home. So that means they're keeping teams kind of hanging around there. But how about the idea, Jeff, that this is a veteran team, and like that Niner team, which had a number of guys that had won 2 Super Bowls. It had been a few years since they had won one. 84, it was 88. It was 4 years later that they were playing. But there was kind of this like, hey, we're measured by the postseason. And that's really where this team is. I've heard that said so many times about so many different teams. The Bulls quit fighting for the number 1 seed, the home field throughout at some point during the 6 championships. They weren't the 1 seed every single year. Is this as much about a team that comes out fired up, makes their point now that, okay, when we want to, we can go down the field, and then just kind of plays position in games right now. And perhaps there is another gear to be found when the games are what's truly going to measure their success this year.
Well, I'd be mindful of making comparisons to teams in the 80s just because the way rosters were built. And I mean, that 88 team you mentioned was together for like 7-8 years, and not just like 5 or 6 guys, like 25 dudes, including a lot of guys who went up in the Hall of Fame. So there is a lot to be said for that kind of chemistry. Whereas the Chiefs are the 2nd or 3rd youngest team in the NFL. And so while there are some guys who were around when they won a championship, most of these guys who were playing weren't. Most of the guys on that offensive line, none of them were here for that stuff. Probably Willie Gay wasn't here for that. Nick Bolton wasn't here for that. Jerry Sneed played in one championship game. It's very easy to draw those parallels, but in reality, this is a team that has to figure out. And I think what's been happening this year is that we're seeing the sausage being made. That it's very easy to say, well, they'll turn it on because that's what they do. They're championship teams, but in reality, they're trying to figure out who they are, and they've been doing that for the last 13 weeks. And so, to me, it's more interesting to ask the question of what are they going to evolve into? Are they going to come out of this being more emboldened by what we've seen over the last 5 weeks? Or is it going to be a continuation of what we're talking about here, which is let's just hold people at bay until we can get Patrick going again? And I think if it's more the latter, then they're going to be in trouble. But if it's more the former, then they can be really formidable down the stretch here. Because as crazy as it seems, there's probably 2 or 3 teams in the playoff picture right now, if the playoffs started today, who probably aren't going to be in once we start playing. I think the Ravens being one of those teams that just, they just not enough bodies left to play football over there. And so they may, just based off seeding, benefit from catching a team that was hot a month ago or 2 months ago that's just super, super beat up now. But ultimately, I think we have to look at it more like this team is different than any other we've seen in the Patrick Mahomes era. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that their road to a championship is going to be determined by what they think of themselves, not by what they've done in the past.
Did we learn anything specifically about the Chiefs in this Bronco game, Eric? Anything jump at you where you said, okay, this is new, this is unique, this is a big step forward?
I think there's no more messing around, right? Like, who started at edge for the Chiefs? It was Melvin Ingram. Like this. You did see some, and I have to look at, by the way, Ben Neiman got his hands on a pass.
Yep.
And Daniel Sorensen caught it. All right.
And our statistics, we call that a batted ball, which is not a pass breakup. It is a batted ball because he did it on a rush. But that's it still counts. Still counts.
By the way, can I just say, for those that are new here to the podcast, we have been talking about for a while that Ben Neiman is the coverage linebacker, and he had never had a pass breakup.
He still doesn't. He has a batted pass now.
He has a batted pass, but he got his hands on the football. We did a little research. He has 4 recovered fumbles. All right. So the idea that he hasn't touched the football is untrue. He has gotten on it. And in Dirty Dan's behalf, did you know that when it comes to pick sixes since 2018, Dirty Dan, only one player has more than Dirty Dan's 4.
Yeah, what was it, his 4th career touchdown
in the NFL?
Yes.
In the NFL. Yeah.
4 pick sixes. 4. 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4.
I remember them all.
That's really good for a
Atlanta was
dime.
1. I know.
He got one in Denver, right?
Yeah, I think 1 in Denver.
And one against the
he
Raiders.
had one against
Jared Cook.
New Orleans in 16, I remember.
Was that what it was? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. But I mean, so there's no messing around. Is that your takeaway, that they're going for the gas pedal?
Yeah, I also think like they're just making. So Mike Hughes started at corner. I'm pretty sure like it was just. Did he miss a tackle? Yeah, he missed it. He missed his first tackle attempt, and they put DeAndre Baker in right away. You know what I mean? And where we were just clamoring for them all year during the first part of the season to play the better player, I think that they're committed to that now. So I think that's a good thing. Willie Gay, 47 snaps. He outsnapped Anthony Hitchens. Now Anthony Hitchens outsnapped Nick Bolton. Even Ben Neiman outsnapped Nick Bolton. I think part of that was being in the prevent a lot. Like, I don't like that. But starting Melvin Ingram, playing him 41 snaps, playing DeAndre Baker over Mike Hughes in the stead of Rashad Fenton, like not sticking with bad players when they're playing bad, I think is a good thing.
Jeff, anything jump at you that you'd say, okay, we learned this about the Chiefs in this game against the Denver Broncos?
I keep going back to this, but just accepting who they are is a big thing. I watched that game. I'm curious to get your guys' opinions about this. I've watched I think I've been watching the same Chiefs game for the last 5 weeks for one thing. And it's not with the sense of they've got this team down and the defense is closing them out. There's no way teams are going to score. It feels more like just don't let a big mistake happen. Just don't let something like what happened with the Patrick Surtain play, or what happened with the Micah Parsons strip sack, where those things. And Eric's right; they've been very fortunate that the ball that wasn't bouncing in their favor at the start of the year has been bouncing in their favor at this point in the season. But again, I don't dismiss that those things have been happening, and so I do think there's a little bit of them playing with fire and how they're operating, and I do feel as if. I'm not a huge fan of the Steelers. I think the Bengals are up and down. You got to catch them. You catch them on the right day, you could blow them out, or they could give you a hard time. But I do feel like the next 5 games are going to be a lot like what we just saw this week, where it's going to be a lot of scuffling, a lot of clawing and fighting and grappling and just trying to hold on as opposed to going out and proving your dominance. And, the Patriots, to me, are the best team in the AFC right now. Maybe the best team in the NFL, the way they're playing. And what I want to see from the Chiefs is what I saw in this Denver game, which is whatever you got to do, we'll do it. Style points don't matter anymore. Big numbers don't matter. Even if you get a turnover, someone's got to make a play to make it happen. And I think that kind of attitude can keep them moving forward in the right direction.
My takeaway is I'm hoping at some point, it's not just Andy Reid talking about the penalties, that in these position rooms, they start talking about the penalties. No. I don't mind the DBs. That's what they do. They play old school Bill Belichick. We're going to maul you, and we dare you to throw a flag on every play. I think that's smart, right, with their style of guys that they've got. I think the pass rush is real. That's one thing I take away from this, that I know they only got the 1 sack, but they were consistently forcing Teddy Bridgewater to unload the ball and just throw it up for grabs and throw it away. And he's a guy that we talked about doesn't really like to make mistakes and manages the game well, yet they still forced him into 2 interceptions. And I think he was even hearing footsteps beyond what it was. So I took away 2 things. One, the pass rush is real. But they continue to, and we talked about it going into it. I don't know, what about 7 days off? Right? 7 days off will get you healthy. 7 days off will give your coaching staff some time to draw up some new scheme. But I don't know what about 7 days off makes you catch the ball. I don't know what about 7 days off makes you quit holding. And it didn't. And so the problems that they had going into this game are still the problems. And I still think they're correctable, but I'm starting to wonder if, the Jeff Chadiha theory that you kind of they are what they are now. To your point about the offense, they're also going to be a team that's constantly penalized and to their detriment. I mean, they had a couple of first downs called back because of penalties. And when you're not whether it's you've lost the ability or defenses have caught up to you to just be that we'll whip it for 18 yards on any 3rd and 15, then maybe they're going to continue to be their own roadblock. That's my take.
Well, and I think what Eric said earlier, we have to accept that Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are not going to be dominant factors week in and week out anymore. The defenses are not going to allow it to happen. And so the penalties, the drop passes, the inaccuracy, all this stuff comes when the ball's going some other direction. So whether it's being handed off to Edwards-Helaire or Darrell Williams, or whether it's being thrown to Byron Pringle or DeMarcus Robinson, whoever else, they got to make plays. Because the trouble starts with the penalties when Patrick is running around trying to make a play, and Orlando Brown's got to hold somebody, or Joe Thuney or Trey Smith's got to hold somebody to keep the play going, and the play's not going anywhere to begin with. And then all of a sudden you've lost 10 yards on a hold. That's what I see happening. That's the domino effect of all this.
Eric, where's the defense rank? Where would you put it now amongst the defenses that are out there? They're now in the top 10 in points allowed. I think, what are they, 8th now? I think.
I actually just saw that they're 8th because I went to look, which, by the way, 7th in 2009. I'm not 19. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, as the kids would say.
But I know what your point there is that you're not saying they're as good as they were in 19, but hey, look, the numbers are there. Why aren't they as good?
No, they are better than they were in 19. Don't you think?
I do. I actually do, because I don't think Bashaud Breeland was that good. And
the issue is you look and they're, second to last in yards per play, tied with the Ravens. Dallas is right beneath them. But I think that's an outlier thing. I think that's a very much a, I think it's very much a what happened at the beginning of the season thing. I think they're getting better. Who is the other edge? I mean, Tano Passigno, was Tano Passigno any better than Alex Okafor or Michael Dana? I think Melvin Ingram's a better version of what Terrell Suggs brought at the end of that season. Obviously, Noddy and Jones are the same player, probably better than they were at that time. Jerron Reed, I think, has the potential to be, they don't have a Mike Pennell, who I do think was really helpful to that team. The linebackers are much more athletic, much better. I thought the best part about the Super Bowl in 19 was that I watched the whole game and I did not think about Anthony Hitchens once, which was a good thing. And I think the corners and the safeties are all better. I mean, they started Dirty Dan in the Super Bowl and were playing Kendall Fuller as the dime free safety because Juan Thornhill tore his ACL in week 17 against the Chargers. Obviously, you can't assume health from here on out, but I do think they're better. And they're living on the promise of what we said on this show coming into the year, which was they can win. This is a defense that can be an asset as opposed to being something that they sort of have to live with, right? Win with, live with. I think it's they've won because of their defense for the last 5 weeks. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And, I think that it's, I would say, it's probably 10. I think 10's reasonable. But if you would have told us at the beginning of the year that they could get 10 out of their defense, I mean, I think 8-4 was the floor, given a record at this time.
Jeff, Chris Jones is back in his natural spot, and he's creating havoc. Frank Clark is healthy. Melvin Ingram was added. Tyrann Matthews playing better. Juan Thornhill is, I think, an explosive player. Willie Gay, I think, makes a giant difference on the football field. I know in the PFF grades, I don't think he cracks the top 50 amongst the linebackers, but I think he's becoming a real, star on the field. Where would you put it? I mean, because that 8th in points allowed, I want to be clear, is they're not 8th in points allowed over this 5-game win streak. They're 8th on the season. That's carrying all the floodwaters that came over the wall early in the year. They've still fought their way back up to 8th overall on the season in points allowed. Where would you put them as far as defense?
They'd probably be 14, 15. I think the ceiling for this defense, given who they have playing on that side of the football, and what they've added, I think is always going to be middle of the pack. I don't think they can. For me, a top 10 defense is what you've seen in when the Ravens are healthy. What you've seen from the Patriots this year.
But the Ravens aren't healthy.
No, I'm saying when the Ravens are healthy. I'm saying when they have everybody right. Not
right,
what they're doing this year.
But we're talking about where are they now? So all the guys that aren't coming back are gone. I mean,
I still think they're 15. I still think if I had to pick defenses that I would take right now, I'd still put them 15. I feel like there's, and I said it because I think there's plays to be had against them that aren't being made just because they're facing teams that have injuries or quarterbacks who aren't out there. It's this stretch reminds me, if we're going to play the game of what this year reminds me of, it reminds me a lot of the year they started 1-5 and got on that 11-game winning streak, when the quarterbacks they played during that run were there's a lot of garbage in there, and there were a lot of backup quarterbacks, a lot of bad offenses, and it caught up to them in the playoffs when they had to play. I think Pittsburgh that year, whoever it was in the divisional playoff. That's the year they played the 18-16 game.
15 was when they beat Hoyer, and then they lost to Brady, like kind of a bad Brady.
Yeah, to Brady.
15 wasn't a great Brady.
Yeah, so that was the year. So, but there was a lot of, and look, you only can play who gets put out there in front of you. So I'm not dismissing that in any way. I think they're playing much better, but I think at their peak, that's what they are. I think Miami's playing much better defense than they are right now. I think Washington's playing better defense than they are right now. I mean, there's teams out there that are playing. Be honest with you, I think Denver's a better defense than what they have. I don't go just off the numbers, because that can be misleading based on who they're playing against. What ultimately will make me a complete 100% believer in this defense is when they're playing a Josh Allen offense again, when they're taking on the Patriots in the playoffs. They're not going to get that great opportunity. Maybe the Bengals, maybe the Raiders this week if Waller's able to get out there and play. But, right now I give them – I'm not bashing them in any way here. I think it's a credit to go from where they were to where they are. It's a huge leap that nobody thought they could make 6 weeks ago. But, yeah, I'm not going to ready to say they're a top 10 defense. I don't see that out there.
I think the dream, if you're a Chiefs fan, is that Herbert meets Allen, and you only have to see one of those en route.
Yeah,
like I don't think you fear Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. I mean, he could have a day, go for 125 on the ground and throw for 275, and they get Marquise Brown loose or what have you. I mean, I'd never say that you can't lose, but I think the other two quarterbacks on the way to seeing an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady in the Super Bowl that you don't want to see. You'd like to not have to go through both Allen and Herbert. And if the bracket could set up to where, you don't have to play both of them, I think that's the scenario that you're looking for. On the offensive side of the ball, who should be the third receiver, Eric, behind Hill and Kelsey? Because seemingly it's a game of duck, duck, goose or darts before every game. One game, Josh Gordon has the third most snaps behind the top two. One game, this last time, it's Byron Pringle that gets the third most snaps. It was McCole Hardman earlier. He probably had the biggest play of any of the receivers not named Hill or Kelsey in this game, but he only played 9 snaps. Who should be the guy, or is Andy Reid going Swiss Army knife and he's picking the right guy depending upon who he plays?
Yeah, I don't think you can do the whole by committee. I think you have to pick a guy and go with him. I think for the most part, you probably have to go with Pringle, and I think that they went mostly with Pringle. And then you go with Robinson, as the fourth guy, and then Hardman ends up becoming, just a gadget guy. I mean, he only had 9 snaps the other day. I think you maybe want more than that, but that's probably where it's going to have to go. But I think it's Pringle, and I think you ignore the drops. He's been more, he's been very, I think, steady for them. And I think that that's really what they need. And, they're not going to get brilliance on any of these guys. I think Gordon might not even make it to the end of the year. I mean, we're at like 12 snaps or something on Sunday nights.
How many catches does he have now? Does he have 2 catches yet?
Josh Gordon, I believe 2.
So like
about 38 short of where Soren had him.
Dude, I mean, listen, I can't even begin to hide from how far below what I thought he would be. He has been. Josh Gordon has been targeted. He's played in 8 games. He's been targeted 6 times. He has 2 catches for 18 yards.
This is the crazy thing, guys. Byron Pringle, yards per target in his career, 10.6 as a rookie, 9.4 last year. This year, 9.8 yards per target. 9 yards a target. Like, and obviously this is confounding, but like Tyreek Hill, yards per target is 7.5. Travis Kelce, 8.1. Like, Pringle still is super efficient at these things. And, I think that's an important, important thing to note. The drops are going to get in the way in people's minds.
Tell me, what's McCole Hardman? What's Demarcus Robinson? And I know Josh Gordon's numbers are going to be
Demarcus Robinson, 7 yards a target.
Okay.
McCole Hardman is 7.3 yards a target. McCole Hardman in his career, which has had its ups and downs, as a rookie, McCole Hardman averaged 13 yards a target. As a second-year player,
is it a target if it's a 5-foot pass?
Yes, those count. And then, I mean, he averaged 21 yards per catch as a rookie, and then in 20 it was 9 yards a target, and then this year it's 7.3. So like Pringle has been efficient when they've thrown him the ball, and it's been relatively consistent over the course of his career, even in small samples. Like the biggest disappointment for me would be if the Chiefs took the 2 drops the other day and said, look, we can't play Byron Pringle. I think he deserves more of a shot.
I'm fine with him getting more of a shot, but we saw him have a couple of critical drops in one of the losses. I don't remember which one it was. But he's had a couple of big drops. But I mean, this isn't the only time he's dropped the ball. But I think the evidence you're putting up there about, because those drops are factored in as 0 yards on a target, and yet he's still up there well above everybody else. I think it clearly speaks to how much attention the other guys draw, but Byron Pringle seems to be able to make defenses pay. I think defenses forget about Byron Pringle. I think they always know where McCole Hardman is. Like, they fear his speed. They fear his draft position, erroneously so. But I think he's more of a known commodity. It's like Byron Pringle, undrafted free agent, and was 30 when he got to the league. I mean, the guy like left a year early and was still like 25 when he came into the league. And I think people kind of look at him that way and they overlook him. But if that's the case, take advantage of it. Jeff, who do you think the third guy ought to be?
I was saying Pringle back in training camp.
Me too.
So I'll stick with him. And he's not the scariest guy in the world, but of those 3 that you just mentioned, he's the one I would trust the most. Eric would have a better insight on this than I would because he was an ex-receiver. But I think the thing about Sammy Watkins that gets underestimated when we talk about what he meant to this offense, there is certainly an art to knowing how to work with your quarterback when you're off script. And a lot of the throws that go to guys like Byron Pringle are off script. And I do think, there was a play that drop that Tyreek Hill had in that game the other day that led to the pick interception, the slant that Mahomes triple pumped it and threw it. And yeah, Hill should have caught the football. He got his hands on it. That's also a tough catch to make for a receiver when you're trying to figure out when's the ball coming. Like, I'm in the middle of traffic. I'm 5'9". I'm going to take a hit here. And you don't know what's going to happen. I suspect more of that happens with guys like Pringle, maybe Demarcus Robinson, not so much because he seems to have a friendship with Mahomes that allows him to stick around this franchise for a lifetime. He's got a lifetime scholarship pass to be in the Chiefs on the Chiefs roster. But, I remember talking to Sammy Watkins in training camp with the Ravens, and he talked about how he looked forward to being the main target and being the guy that Lamar Jackson was going to look for first, second, third in a pinch because he knew how to operate in that role. And he said, the way he phrased this, I always remember this. He said, I don't have to be the guy who gets Travis and Tyreek open anymore. And he caught some flag. We talked about it on the Border Patrol. Like, oh, what does he mean by that? I think what he meant was like, yeah, teams have to respect what I do. And if they don't, then I'm going to burn them. And so that allows other guys to make plays. There is a factor in this that whoever's in that position opposite Kelsey and Hill has got to be somebody who you trust to do the right thing, because if he's not in the right spot or he's not ready, it's going to be hard to make plays.
Yeah, I know Eric has a tremendous fondness for Sammy Watkins. Let's point out 27 for 394 and a touch with the Baltimore Ravens. That's in just 9 games.
By the way, I called 2 things this weekend. Okay. I called the Lions winning.
That was on 2 Deep on Thursday.
You did call that, yeah.
I mean, we were going to give you the love.
You call it twice.
The Thursday podcast, but I mean, I guess you won it now. So yes, you called the Lions outright.
I also called this. So I had a visitor that was watching games with us at the PFF offices who works for the Ravens, and when they were backed up, I was saying, I said, look, Sammy Watkins is going to catch the go-ahead touchdown here. And Sammy Watkins is nails. And I know you use that phrase on your show. You're part of that. It's Sammy Watkins when the game is on the line is nails.
I like Sammy Watkins. I don't like him at $16 million. So
yeah, sure.
At that point, they paid him. It was part of the equation. They had, undervalued guys in other spots that all worked out. I have nothing but love for Sammy Watkins. But I will tell you this, nobody else wants him. If he thinks it's just about the team wanting you to catch 1,000, apparently no one wants him to catch for 1,000 yards, because it's not happening anywhere. So somewhere between his view of himself and his comments to Jeff Chadiha and the numbers probably lies reality of where he is. I think.
But don't you think Sammy was the consummate teammate though in Kansas City?
Yes. I think in the locker room he's a good guy, because he doesn't piss and moan and I'm not getting mine. And I give credit to the guy. He went and signed with the Ravens, who had other receivers. They had Mark Andrews, they had Marquise Brown, who they're going to try to justify, his draft position. He had been a disappointment till now. They love to run the football, yet he still signed with the Ravens when he could have gone down to Jacksonville and been the number 1 guy, right? If what he wanted was stats, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Jags and every other bad team was no, but the Texans seem willing to give every has-been a shot.
Hey, that's Chris Conley you're talking about.
But there is value in what Eric's saying. There is value in having somebody who is a professional about this kind of stuff.
I agree.
As opposed to what McCole Hardman's been doing. I'm sure he's not happy and moping around because he's playing 9 snaps and he ain't going to be here next year.
Do you even think he's self-aware enough to understand that? McCole Hardman strikes me as the guy who's got 3 homers and is still swinging for the fences because he's a
Chris Conley, by the way, 4 targets, no catches Sunday.
So, I mean, there is
That's
a quarterback out there. No, but I mean, that's I don't know that. I don't think McCole Hardman's a problem in the locker room, because I think everybody thinks he's a goof, right? Yeah. Nobody takes him serious. Right. Every time he sits in front of the microphone, I'm like, and the Chiefs there for a while seem to love to bring him out. They like to bring out their favorites. The guys, they love him some Orlando Brown at the mic. They love bringing Nick Bolton out because he's not going to say anything. Yeah. Reid Humphrey's going to say nothing. They love to drag him out there as well. Joe Tootie says nothing. And McCole Hardman, they kept bringing out there. I'm like, he steps on his Johnson every time he comes out here. I'm not sure why you're bringing him out here. So, anyway, but they seem to have been okay, enough of you. I mean, we'll see. Next game, like I said, Andy Reid maybe thinks, hey, this matchup, this is the guy. That matchup, that's the guy. We'll see. I would like to see Byron Pringle get 3-4 games in a row so we could see, is he just every time they throw him the ball, I got to get a touchdown here to prove it. Just give him the job and let's see what he does for a couple.
It's like in basketball where you got to shorten your bench. You can't be playing 10 guys. You got to start playing 7 in the rotation.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, I think it's fair, and start getting some rhythm with some guys that are out there, because we at least Patrick could get the rhythm with Sammy Watkins. Yeah. Right? When he was healthy, he knew what he was going to be. And now one game it's Hardman, one game it's Josh Gordon, one game it's Byron Pringle. Pick a guy and go with him for a few games and see if you can get it to click. Far be it from me to question a Hall of Fame coach and an offensive genius and everything, but hey, it's the only thing you haven't tried at that third wide receiver spot. So why not?
And I think, by the way, they did it on defense. They'll eventually do it on offense, right? they'll come to grips with the fact that their offense is not playing well. But the first half of the year, the offense was playing fine, right? Like they were getting the turnovers and stuff, but their efficiency was fine. Now you can't even rest on the efficiency stuff. Eventually, right? And we've seen that. Hardman's sitting on the bench basically now. Gordon sat on the bench after the bye. It was Robinson and Pringle. I agree with you, Soren. I think what we need to see is a commitment to competence at that position, the same way there was a commitment to competence at edge, linebacker, safety, all that stuff throughout the roster.
I do want to get into what is going on with Andy Reid and winning 5 games in a row over 9 years, because I think this is an underrated stat. 9 consecutive years, right? 5 of them with Alex Smith as his quarterback. Andy Reid, every season with the Kansas City Chiefs, has rattled off a 5-game win streak. No one has ever had more than 7. And I saw that stat. They didn't say who it was that it had 7. He's gone 2 years longer than anybody. I saw another stat on Monday Night Football. Bill Belichick has like the most 7-game win streaks, right? He's like a couple in front of Don Shula. I think, that's a great stat as well. But 5-game win streaks are no joke. I mean, if you think about, take any record and then add 5 wins to it and look at how it tilts the scales. You come out 2-2 and you're like, we're kind of crappy. 5 games later, you're 7-2. You're like, we're getting home field advantage, right? You're 6-4. Yeah, we're pretty good, right? Where the Chiefs found themselves in 2019, and everyone was questioning, hurt Patrick Mahomes. What are they? They won 5 in a row, and then another one with all backups in there. They tilt the record to 11-4. I mean, probably next year, because as soon as everybody starts talking about one of these things, it usually dies, like the Chiefs over, total, although that's still in play. That 12.5, 13 wins could still happen, and Andy Reid could go over yet again on the over-under. But, I think the 5-game win streak thing, when you can hang your hat on that you're going to have that kind of stretch at some point during the year, is really underrated, and this has not gotten enough credit. Jeff, you write for NFL.com. Yeah. You're on NFL Network. You could make a thing out of this.
Yeah.
Is this underrated?
I didn't even know about it until about 5 minutes ago. So yeah, it is underrated. But it's impressive. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's a bit of an obscure stat. I didn't even know the stat about Belichick you were talking about, but it does speak to Andy's ability to find a groove, get into a rhythm, get his players focused. I've long felt that he doesn't get enough credit for that. I mean, the wins and all that stuff, the championship, the Hall of Fame thing, all that stuff has been figured out. But his ability to really, figure out what it takes to keep a team motivated. And sometimes some of the stuff he does is kind of corny with these plays and the formations and the trick stuff. But I think it does matter. I think it does keep people on their toes. I think he's got a great approach to preparing a team to play football, where he works them hard in the preseason and training camp, gets into the season and treats them like men, treats them like professionals. And he focuses more on the intangible stuff, on the mental side of the game, and less on the physical part of it as the season wears on. So I think he learned that from Mike Holmgren, to be honest with you. I think he learned how to treat players in a way that they respond as the year goes on. So yeah, it's a great accomplishment, because, God, it's like I'm trying to think of other coaches who could come close to doing that, and I can't think of anybody.
Yeah, and by the way, to your point about the fun plays, we haven't seen as many of those here of late, right? During the win streak, the Kelsey and Mahomes acting like they're arguing about who's supposed to line up where, and then the ball gets snapped to the running back behind Patrick Mahomes. I remember that play. They did another one of the little Spinderella type plays at the beginning of the year. We haven't seen those as much. It seems like
God forbid they run that play and Mahomes throws it and it bounces off Orlando Brown's helmet, gets returned for a 99-yard interception return for a touchdown. I'm sure he's thought about that as well.
Yeah, but here we sit, and the Chiefs were the favorite coming in to the season to win the Super Bowl. They tumbled down those numbers, and I'm looking at some Super Bowl odds right now. Chiefs plus 275, Pats plus 275. This is to win the AFC. Chiefs 275, Pats 275, Bills plus 450, Ravens plus 800. If people don't know, that means that the Chiefs and Pats are a little less than 3-1. Bills are 4.5-1. Ravens are 8-1. They're back up their co-favorites with the Patriots because they've won 5 in a row. Is it underrated? Eric, you crunch math. I mean, should more be made of this, or do you think it's more of a cute little anomaly?
I don't think it's a cute anomaly. I think being able to, like, in an NFL season where the Packers lose in Minnesota, the Cardinals lose to Carolina, Buffalo loses to Jacksonville, the Colts, can't hang. Like, being able to string games together is just a thing. Like, it matters, and I think Andy Reid should be commended for it.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal, and we'll see if he stretches it on out. 10 games is the franchise record in season. He's got a chance if they would win out to go to 11. They won an 11th and 15 in the playoffs against the Texans. So
When you had 9 and 13, right? 9 straight and 13. In 2019, what they went 6 and then 3,
so
and
now,
then another. What did they start last year? 5-0.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, I mean, he's done this. This is just one of those, like, it's just them. They're good, right? Like, they are of the 89, 99ers, the 03, 04 page, like, all the great win streaks. Andy Reid has the formula for all that, and that's how you win Super Bowls, in my opinion. Now, can they win more than one? I think so, but I think this is part of the formula.
They're good enough to win it here moving forward, it seems like, and so we'll see if they can put it in this year. Let's leave it with this: the expectations for the game between the Chiefs and Raiders. Chiefs are almost a 10-point favorite in this game against the Raiders. That smells a little bit deep. It smells like people are getting back into their whatever the number is. I'll take the Chiefs mindset here because that seems like a big number with the Raider teams back against the wall, playing with revenge. The Chiefs, frankly, don't play that great at home. They play better on the road over the last couple of years. Anything concerning about this game against the Raiders for you if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, Jeff?
Deshaun Jackson. I think he's inserted himself into that offense and become a difference maker. And the way you have to attack the Chiefs defense to make them put them back on their heels with speed. Go down. How many teams have gone down the field against them during this 5-game run they've had of playing great defense? Like, I can't think of anybody, right? Nobody's going to play down the field against them. At least a big, like a 40, 50-yard gain. Certainly not for a touchdown. So he changes the game. And if Darren Waller is shaky to play, but if he plays, then it's a dangerous combination. And you saw that against Dallas. They lost a tough game to the Washington football team, but I think the way that the Raiders played them in the first game, they're not going to play in the way that they're not going to play that same way. They're not going to sit there and single high safety looks and try to dare the Chiefs to beat them in man coverage. They're going to sit in too high. They're going to force the ball to be thrown underneath, and they're going to try to make big plays, and that's going to be their formula.
I mean, that the Raiders didn't sit too high the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
They got smoked to the tune of 41. Yeah. So that'll be an about face if they do it. Eric, any concerns in this game, and what do you think about the number?
I think the number's a little bit high. I did tease Kansas City down to 2.5 when it was 8.5, and now it's gone to 9.5. So that does appear to be the right thing. Like last week, I'm going to be under in this game. The Chiefs games have gone under every single week since week 5, except for the Raiders game, which went over by a field goal. Last week, obviously Denver helped out, taking 10 minutes off of a quarter without scoring a point. But I do think the Chiefs right now need to, 48.5. It does feel just like one of these, 27-16 type of games. In which case, I like Chiefs and under.
Yeah, no doubt. I like this game to be more of a fight. I think they're in for I won't be shocked. Maybe this is just a bad match. Last year was a bad matchup for the Chiefs against the Raiders, and maybe the things the Raiders did to try to change things up have actually backed them up. But I do feel like the Raiders come in here with a lot on the line, and I think this is going to be more of a divisional game than people think. I'll probably have the Raiders and the points, and I think it's scary because no one's talking about this game as being one that they could lose. Everybody's pointing to the Chargers. Secondarily, they're pointing to the Bengals game, and probably the game that'll get them will be the Steelers and a smart Mike Tomlin, or it'll be the Raiders in a game that you're just totally looking past, looking on to that Thursday night game against the Chargers and the look ahead bites the Chiefs in this game. I think this one is scarier than people think, and it may bite them. We'll see what happens. That's going to do it for us here on Red, Gold, and Bold. Make sure you catch us. If you're getting us via the podcast, we stream live 9 p.m. Central every Tuesday. And, of course, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Central, we stream live. And, of course, you can catch our Too Deep, TOODEP podcast, NFL-driven podcast where we talk about the entire league. Check it out. Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, I don't know, every other social media platform we can think of to put it on. We'll do it. Let us know if we're missing one. We'll get it out there on it. So for Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Eric Eager from Pro Football Focus, my name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on Red, Gold, and Bold.